that nice? And again, it always cracks me up. She's got this nice little sweet voice, but you haven't heard what she can do with her voice. It's hilarious. You'd think, what? That's Colony? If you heard it. So if you want to get a general idea, go listen to someone like Joan Jett. Or who would you say?
Oh gosh, Joan Jett's a good example.
Yeah, Joan Jett. You want to hear what she actually can do. And you'd all be going, what? But she's real sweet right now. Chris is gonna, what? Yeah. Chris is gonna talk to you all a little bit, just to keep everybody informed and try and just keep everybody thinking and get people to understand what all's going on. So Dr. Willard is going to talk to you a little bit about the vaccines.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Doctor. So Pastor Dan has asked me to maybe stand up and say a few words about COVID vaccine and such. He's getting a lot of questions from people in regards to the vaccine, and he thought maybe for me to stand up and to talk a little bit about it. And I know with this topic and such, some people have deep-seated beliefs, and people have had beliefs for that are for many years on how they feel about vaccines and such. But myself personally, being in the medical field, I look at my worldview is such that I look and I gather as much information as I can. I look at those people who would be experts in fields, who have studied these things for many years. I mean, I trust the medical community when I go to have procedures done for myself, my family. So they've, when they haven't really failed me in the past, and so when I look at the consensus of information out there and those people who study these things, that's kind of where I'm coming from today. And personal experience with the vaccines. My mom, who's 90 years old, has gotten the vaccine. My Christine's grandmother, who's 91, has gotten the vaccines, and she's one that's allergic to everything and anything. Had little to no issues. My staff members who have been vaccinated have had little to no issues with the vaccine, other than a sore shoulder or possibly a little bit of a headache. So personally, the people I've known and that have been vaccinated have had very little side effects from it. None of the gals at work had to miss a day of work after they got vaccinated. So I can't speak for everyone out there that's been vaccinated, but my personal experience is such that no one had any major side effects and such. Looking at and doing some research on this, on people who study vaccines, I pulled up an article that was written by Paul Gopert, and he is director of the Alabama Vaccine Research Clinic at the University of Alabama. He's been studying vaccines for over 30 years, and he has never really seen a vaccine that's as effective as the COVID vaccines. He's looked at decades of vaccine history plus data from more than 1 billion people who have received the COVID vaccine, and basically they're not showing any major issues for the vast majority of people who become vaccinated. The messenger RNA vaccine is a vaccine that once it's given, that messenger RNA degrades very quickly in the body, so it's not floating around. Basically what it does is it tells your body to make a protein that mimics the spiky things on the outside of the COVID virus, so that you can, when the body sees that, it's able to develop an immune response from it. And looking in the history of vaccines, side effects come within weeks of a vaccine, if they show up at all. And so the fact that we've been vaccinating people now, well, in the trials, would go back to almost a year now, and we're not seeing, major issues with it. If we look at, many people worry that these vaccines were rushed into use and still do not have full FDA approval. Probably we'll see full FDA approval on the Pfizer vaccine coming this week. But he said we've had so many people vaccinated. This was the guy in charge of the director of the Alabama Vaccine Research Clinic. He said we have so many people that's been vaccinated. We actually have far more safety data than we've had for any other vaccine. And these COVID vaccines have an incredible safety track record, and there should be confidence in that. So, I can go into a little bit more detail on how the vaccines and the messenger RNA work, but I don't really, want to put into a science class today and such, and you probably don't either. But if we go back and look at it a little bit, some people are concerned about them being rushed in, but the technology that has been 40 years in the making on with messenger RNA vaccines, they've been used to help treat cancer. And if we look at, people say, well, how were we able to get it so quick? One of the things, if we look at, the Trump administration took down, the bureaucratic red tape. So instead of these things sitting on somebody's desk for 6 months or a year, waiting to get pushed on to the next person, they were able to go through the process and we backed the entire, the United States government. And when we put our full force behind things, we've been able to do great things in the past in short periods of time. We've gone to the moon. We've, we created a peacetime economy to a wartime in World War II, and so when we try and put our full might behind something, we can do quite amazing things. Couple of things in regards to some of the facts versus myths and such. I think Pastor Dan has talked a little bit about that the vaccine is not the mark of the beast. We believe that once saved, always saved. So, to say a vaccine you would lose your salvation would be to say that Christ's death on the cross wasn't sufficient. There's also concern people have you can get COVID-19 from the vaccine because of the way the vaccine is and how it's made. This one doesn't have any live viral particles, or has no viral particles in it. Another thing that people come up, well, I already had COVID, so I don't need the vaccine. Well, we see people who have had COVID multiple times. And so the vaccine helps to boost your immune response to it. People now, wonder about, well, we see people who have been vaccinated who have gotten COVID. Well, the majority of the data is coming out is showing that those that if they've been vaccinated and get COVID, they're much less likely to be hospitalized or have severe illnesses. If we look at data that we got coming out of Israel, because Israel is kind of ahead of the game a little bit on how many people were vaccinated and such. And if we look at their breakthrough cases, the ones that are people who have been vaccinated that have gotten COVID, most of those are older, above 60. A high percentage of them were bedridden to begin with. And but what they've seen though is that on those older individuals, once they've started to give them a third dose, those numbers have started to come down again. And so it's So the vaccine protection may start to wane, which is one of the things we kind of figured. And so, but that the next dose then helps to boost the protection again. You know, a couple other short things, and then I'll be done. You know, I've known people personally who have had serious issues with COVID. A local school administrator here who is same age as I am, good health. He came down with COVID. He passed away. I read the journal entries by his wife, and they're heartbreaking. The ups and downs that he went through, and what his wife and his family went through. Being intubated, having chest tubes put in, having to roll onto his stomach, you know, then getting better, then reverting back, and finally, you know, passing away. Where the nurse had called his wife and said, you know, asked her to sign a DNR message or note and or, you know, form, because he just, you know, if he codes, it would just be, you know, physical abuse to try to kind of bring him back, just because he was in such a frail condition. Another friend of mine, a guy I went to a couple years older than me in high school, had got COVID, severe COVID. And this is a guy that before he got it, I mean, he enjoyed going out four-wheeling with his family and his friends, and you know, worked every day, was a hard worker, maybe wasn't the greatest shape, but I mean, he was still, you know, enjoyed life. And now he's been out of the hospital for probably about a month now, but he's still on supplemental oxygen. He still can't go back to work. And so these are things that that I don't wish on anyone, and reading some of the you know, their stories are heartbreaking. And if getting a vaccine can help kind of keep you and your loved ones from kind of going through that, you know, then I would encourage you to. If you're dead set against it, you're dead set against it, and that's your choice. And I'm not here to convince anyone, you know, and tell them that that they have to get the vaccine. It's just trying to give a little bit of information, and from my point of view. So, thank you all for listening.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Lots been going on this week. I'm going to pray us in, and then we're going to start talking. I think it's going to be a fairly easy message for you. I hope so. We'll see what God does. So let's pray. Lord, first and foremost, I think everyone would agree with me on this. I would like to pray for the women and the children, especially the men also, but the people that are sitting in Afghanistan right now, having to deal with religious persecution and violence and the fear of having a collapsed government. I know that there are missionaries over there, there are pastors' families over there, there are Americans over there. And I know that the women are at the greatest risk, actually. Lord, I pray that whatever needs to happen there for you to be glorified, that it would be done. I pray, Lord, that you would give the leaders of the world wisdom and rightness in their thinking to do what needs to be done that should be done. I pray, Lord, that today you would be glorified in this church. I pray for those that are not here right now because they have been sick, because they want to make sure they don't get sick. I pray that you would keep them and take care of them, and that they would remain a part of this family and feel that they are still a part of this family. As always, I I am very grateful for the forgiveness that you offer all of us all the time. I pray, Lord, that you continue to teach us to forgive and have attitudes of graciousness, kindness, and patience with each other. I pray you remove fears and doubts, that you fill our heads with great understanding and great wisdom, and that we are obedient in responding correctly to what you tell us and teach us. Amen. Of course, Afghanistan. Something, I've been like you guys. I've been hearing all the news, all the information, all the stuff coming out, all the arguments, all of the hatred. And so I think I want to tell you this way. And then what I want to talk to you about more than anything, though, is the role of women in ministries. And I know it's not Mother's Day, but thinking about what's happening right now to women in Afghanistan and knowing how serious it is. I don't know, those of you who have daughters, you probably feel like I do. I can't imagine my daughters having to suffer like other men's daughters are suffering right now in that country because of a demonic religious belief. And I will say it. It's not my job to protect a religious belief that is so deadly. I won't. And I know that that's considered politically incorrect. But the truth is the truth, whether they like it or not. I called my son. And my son was 101st Airborne Air Assault. They were in Afghanistan, or they came in through Turkey, but they were in Iraq. And David said to me when I mentioned it, he goes, "Oh, Afghanistan, the horn of the devil." And I asked him, he's 39, he's almost 40. I asked him, "So tell me what I should think about all this. You've been over there, you've seen these people." And he goes, "Well, the Al-Qaeda is, in its simplest form, a clique. There's multiple groups all over there that are doing things that we wouldn't agree with." And so I said, so what do I need to think? And I said, "I just want to hear you tell me your opinion." He said something that was really, really good. It totally reset my thinking. And it's probably going to reset yours. He made the point that there's no question it was time to get out of Afghanistan. He said the way they got out was incorrect. But the reason why it was time to get out, and this is not the main point I want to give you, but I figured you'd like to hear this also, is we've been there for so long, and he named the officer that was in charge of all kinds of stuff in Afghanistan, and he said, we would go in and we would show them what to do and how to do it. We would set them up to do it, and they would immediately start doing it because they needed to, because they were in trouble. And then as soon as everything stabilized, they would immediately go back and start doing everything again that they had been doing before. So his point is we're wasting our time. Gorbachev, in a brief snippet, and he's very old now and he does live in the United States, he made the statement, you needed to get out of there. Russia got out of there. If you read the history of Afghanistan, it is not a good place to have wars. It's dead. It's dead. Now, having said that, I'm not supporting any one political view or anything like that. I'm just giving you information. But here's the thing you're not thinking that my son said that was so good. He said, "Dad, what's the difference if they put women in a box, meaning they block them in where they can't do anything, from us prostituting them the way we do?" Both things are wrong. Both things are bad. And he said, it's easy for you to look at them and see them all as bad because they restrict the women and they're violent and they're bad to their women in their country. But we are too. Now, he's right. He's right. And then he said this. And he said, I know you don't know this, but those people over there love their families too, even the bad ones. Not all of them, but they're not that much different. His point was valid in the sense that he was saying, without saying it, it is always the self-righteous people that look at the sins of others and feel it's their job to judge them instead of dealing with their own sin. This nation and the way it treats females is absolutely disgusting. Think about it. You can get pornography anytime you want, any level, any kind you want, at any point in time. And here's the amazing thing. It's illegal in the United States, yet we do it. We have child trafficking going on in such mass numbers now. It's unreal. We have human trafficking going on in mass quantities. We have so much vile abuse in this nation that calls itself a Christian nation. Quite frankly, in my opinion, based on the statement my son made, we're worse than Al-Qaeda because we know the truth and we're not doing it. Now, just wanted to change some of your political views a little bit. I wanted you to think more in line of what the real issue is, and I've been saying it ever since I got to this church, ever since I've been in ministry. I feel driven to say it more now than I've ever felt in my life. You are either a Christian who is pursuing obedience to the kingdom of Jesus, your Messiah, or you still think you're an American, or you still think you're a Democrat, or you still think you're a Republican or a conservative. You need to get it in your heads. I am a Christian, period. And I have been given work detail in the United States, a place that I love, but a place that is not a nation that is so revered by God. Alan, I didn't give you this. I just thought of it. Can you pull up Psalm chapter 2? I want to show you something. And I really hope you understand. I'm not bashing my country. I'm blessed. I'm glad my work assignment as a Christian is in the United States. Now think about what I said. I am a Christian in America. I don't see myself anymore hardly as being an American. I'm a Christian in America. And Christians need to start thinking that way. As a matter of fact, if you started thinking that way, you would start dealing with the issues in life that matter and stop bickering over political ideas, because the world's philosophies are garbage. I don't care if it's Republican, Democrat, or whatever. God is the only one. Look what it says. Why do the nations rage against and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. Who are his anointed? If you're a Christian, they are setting themselves against you because they're setting themselves against the Lord. Now, you can't tell me, I'm trying to be cool all about all this. You can't tell me that this nation, in its present form, is supporting the Christian faith in any way, shape, or form. Can't tell me that. As a matter of fact, it's doing everything it can to shut down your voice as much as it possibly can, especially in the areas of saying that marriage is between a man and a woman, that sex is supposed to be in a marriage situation, that homosexuality is wrong, that taking somebody's gender and changing it is wrong. Now, you need to realize I am considered right now by this nation making statements that are considered hate crime. I have missionary friends, some that go to England, some that go to Germany. And they, when they fill out and do their passport, where it identifies them as either being a missionary, a pastor, or even an evangelist, they actually now have to agree to not speak on certain topics if they go into that country. So you need to understand that you are being forced, I believe, by God himself to make a decision on who you're going to be. Let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. That's literally the world saying, let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of Jesus. Let's get rid of God. Anything that has to do with the God of the Bible, we got to get rid of it. Burst its chains. He who sits in the heavens laughs, and I love that. God's up there going, you morons. Come on, that's good. The Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion. That's Jesus, my holy hill. Please, please, please let it soak in. Please let it soak in. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, all those people you guys hear about all the time, they are under him. They are not above him. Your king is the ruler of this planet and this universe. Your king clearly communicates to you as his people, his citizens, how he wants you to conduct yourself, how he wants you to think. Your king, if you're a Christian. If you're not a Christian, listen to everybody else. It doesn't matter to me. If you have put a political view above your biblical view, what God says is true, you don't want to hear what I'm saying. You don't care. You want to shut it off. And I understand, you can take that down now, please. I understand that there are a lot of people on this planet that think Christianity is bad because of people who call themselves Christians that do bad things. I understand the confusion. I had somebody say it last week to me, that they're rethinking whether or not they want to associate with Christians or not. And this person is a liberal thinking person. And I said this to them. What you just said was this. I've decided that because a few people, and this is my illustration, a few people, because they're black, all black people are bad. And then he looked at me and he goes, and smiles, and I go, exactly. What you just said was prejudice, and you accuse us of being prejudiced? You just said all Christians are bad. But see, the problem you've got is the world, because of bad Christians, thinks that all of them are bad. Just like a racist would think that all of Al-Qaeda, they're all just evil, awful people. Well, we don't know that. Is their belief wrong? Sure. It is wrong. Based on our Christian belief, it's wrong. I don't agree with their views on women. I don't agree with ours either. Let me give you some history. And really, this sermon was supposed to be about women. In Paul's letter to the Romans, he greets 15 women, 18 men. One of the misunderstandings that people have in the church, because the Bible has been written by men, and because you had the 12 apostles, you had Jesus, man dominant. The one thing about Jesus that I love is he never, ever, ever propagated that mindset of men being superior to females. And he even never propagated that children are less either. Meaning his whole thing is that everybody has immense value. That was his teaching. That was his actions and his philosophy, if you want to call it a philosophy. So let's go down the line. I want to show you what he stepped into when he came on this planet and showed up. Harry Chadwick, who was a Cambridge church historian, made the statement that in the culture that Jesus showed up in after the church was established, the women were dominantly the ones joining the belief more than men. He's not the only one. There's other historians. They have found writings in the catacombs in Rome that demonstrate that in the Christian church, when it started, there was an entirely different approach to females than the cultures around them. In this society at the time, women were considered chattel. They were considered property. Children were considered property. Women in pagan communities were in large number required to pretty much stay indoors. They were not allowed to vote on anything. They were not allowed to be witnesses in courts of law. They were not allowed to read the Torah. As a matter of fact, one of the famous rabbis said, you were better off burning the Torah than letting a woman read it. You had them start meetings together, the men in the communities, in the Jewish communities, where they would literally tell God, thank you for not making me a woman. In the Roman communities, it wasn't much better. Now, the Jewish community was pretty good on a lot of things, believe it or not, but the Christian community took it to the next level. What people don't understand is Jesus was an absolute 100% radical in society. He was the exact opposite of how everybody else thought. Isn't it fascinating that to this very day, he is still a radical and the world wants to get rid of him? Of course they do, because he called out all of our garbage and pointed us in the direction of what's true and what's right. He's still seen as a radical. Christians are a problem. As a matter of fact, if you read some of your news articles, people are dying all over the country because of Christians with the COVID. Go look at it. Jesus is guilty of killing people now with COVID. I'm serious. This is this mindset of how bad Christians are. Of course they think that way. They thought that way about Jesus. But in this culture, women were so treated bad. For instance, you had no choice who you married, even in the pagan culture. Christian, you had a choice under Christianity. You had, in the pagan culture, now keep this in mind because I'm trying to get you to see something. The world treated women like garbage. The church didn't. Now, there are cases in church history where people who called themselves Christians mistreated women and still do, but not Jesus and not what Jesus taught. When it came to infanticide, which we call abortion, they were killing mass numbers of their children. The pagans were, the world. They were killing lots and lots of female babies. And it was the men who made the decision. The women could not choose to abort a baby. The men made the decisions. So in Roman culture, it got so bad that there was 130 men to every 100 women. So they were killing so many female babies in their culture that there were not enough women. Hence, one of the things that started happening is men were marrying earlier in age young women. So you know, and I have the percentages, I'm not going to give them to you. If you want to see them later, you can. They're marrying girls as young as 7 and consummating with these young girls. The average girl marrying in the pagan culture was 12 years old, some cases 12, 10, on down to 7. And they give you the percentages of what they know from their archaeological studies and graves that they've dug up and epitaphs that are written. 48% of the Christian community, the females, were marrying at the age of 18 and up. 7% at this time of Jesus were marrying at 13 years old and down. And part of that reason is you didn't live very long then. You died young. You died in childbirth, all of that. The point, though, is the Christian community's approach to females versus the world's approach to females. Because the early church was adhering very strongly to Christ's teachings. In marriage, so we had them, it was considered in the Christian community, and I'm going to say this, and I don't care who it offends. I really don't anymore. They called killing babies murder. And I agree. Now, you can argue with me all day long why you think abortion should be legal and everybody should have a right. Listen, I'm not arguing the argument with you. If you are not bothered by the idea of taking an infant's life, there's something wrong with you. Now, you can hate me all you want. You can hate me all you want. But I'm not playing into the world's ideas about the value of a human being being less than what Jesus says it is. I will not agree to it. And you can call yourself a Christian all day long. I don't care, because you are contradicting the very ideas that Jesus put forward as a radical. And I'm not going to apologize for my Christian faith any longer in a world that is hell-bent on destroying itself. And tell me I'm wrong, because you can't tell me I'm wrong. Look around you. Look around you. I'm making friends today, aren't I? There was a Greek philosopher and historian at that time period who said the Roman citizenship was cruel in the way they treated their females. Women had no say in divorce. They had no say in who they married. As a matter of fact, they know from studying the grave sites that young girls were having to marry men up in their 30s and 40s, and they were only just barely teenagers. So you literally, in my opinion, any way you want to slice it, you got pedophilia going on, in my opinion. I mean, come on. How could you be so unkind? And I'm telling you, even the pagans were saying, this is cruel, what we're doing. Go read some of the letters some of the senators wrote in reference to what was happening to their society in the last days of Rome as it collapsed. Not conquered, collapsed. Ceased to function with any reason, logic, nothing. Go look at the history. The most powerful nation just collapsed on itself because of the ridiculousness in their thinking. And if you want to see something and go look at the history, the focus on homosexuality and multiple marriages, all of that stuff, baby king, all of that was off the charts in the last days of Rome. Go read what the senators themselves said. But no, I'm being a religious fanatic, right? I'm being some religious zealot. Please, I'm stating historical facts. Go look. The term spinster in any form didn't even exist really in the Roman language, because if you were a female up to the age of 50, you were actually fined if you weren't married, because they had such a shortage of females in the culture. They actually would rebuke you and fine. You had to get married if you were a female. There was no real thing of unmarried women after the age, until after the age 50. They penalized them. But amazingly enough, Jesus shows up on the scene, and women in mass numbers, especially in the upper echelon of Rome, started converting to Christianity. As a matter of fact, if you look at statistics today, you'll find that women on average are the ones who are dominant within churches, meaning more of them there. Now, granted, population size, there's more women than men. I get all that. I know there's people sitting there trying to find holes in my argument. I get it. You're not going to find them. And if you do, I'll debate it. But we know historically that not just Christianity, but around the globe, they've done studies. Women, by nature, will gravitate to a religious idea more than men. So now, having said that, because I'm not going to keep you long, I promise. You see examples of Jesus dealing correctly with everyone, especially with females and children. You see it when he talks to the Samaritan woman and literally discusses theology with her. Number one, you're a Jew, you have no business being around a Samaritan, they're no good. And the other side of the coin was, it's a female. What are you doing sitting with a Samaritan woman, Jesus? Talking religion with her, Jesus. You didn't do that. He did it. And that's just one of many cases. So here's my point. I don't ask them, I let them talk, but my daughters will be conversing with their mother, and I'll listen to them when they're talking about their churches. My daughters go to church. Their families go to church. And then I asked my wife, as I was putting this together, I said, what is it that women are looking for or are drawn to? And it was amazing to me. I had not thought about it. And then I realized that my daughters had been saying it all along. Young women, older women, women in general, but especially ones who have a family, are looking for a sense of community to raise their children in that will be conducive to their mental and social health. It's almost instinctive for females to look for a location where they can get greater protection or greater strength from being in a community that's going to support what they're doing, which is raising a family. Women, by nature, will talk to other women with the intention of learning discipline patterns that they use on their children, dietary patterns, relational, how do I deal with these relational issues my child is having at this stage in the game. They go to church to strengthen their families. A lot of times unconsciously. Women who do not feel that they are going to get for their family what their family needs will not go be a part of a group if the females are not feeding them with what they know. One of the things we lost at the Industrial Revolution was during the time when we were farming communities predominantly, Grandma and Grandpa lived at the house and worked together with Mom and Dad worked together with the children, and they all knew each other. And psychologists will tell you that that family structure, the power of it is that each generation is able to teach the next generation how to live life. They've shown that they had stronger psychological qualities because of the interaction that was going on in communities. Early on, people used to go to church and have picnics together, and they would build houses together. And as a Christian community, their whole focus was on that community. The society we live in now is becoming more and more isolated. Fear is motivating it. Over amounts of stimulus is causing issues. Absolutely, you can sit online and watch church from home and not have to worry about interacting with anybody at all if you want. The only way a church is going to have great influence on culture is not just the men, but heavily the females. You know why? I'm going to go where my wife tells me I have to go. I mean, come on. My wife, when it comes to the family, if it wasn't for my wife, my kids would have been stood up in the yard, and I would have taken a water hose and washed them down instead of changed diapers. I mean, if it wasn't for my wife, and I would let them eat whatever they want. I mean, most guys are like me, I think. It's like, go eat some chips, I don't care. Women are absolutely critical in a society. Vital. And what they're doing over there in Afghanistan, we've kind of done in our own way. And until a group of people, it doesn't matter. I mean, again, our church, let's take our church. When everybody's here, we have about 40 people. We've had to fight the issue of COVID, multiple things. And I like what Mike said earlier, that, you know, unless you're getting beat up real good, the odds are you're probably not doing what you should be doing. So we're doing really good because we're getting beat up real good. But I have to say this, and I mean this with all respect, and I'm serious. I am very grateful for all the women that are in my life. I'm grateful that you don't think like me, because a lot of times I get in trouble for the way I think. But I know that you're absolutely critical to this ministry, more so than you can imagine. And you don't think you are, but you are. You're critical to every guy in this room. You're important. You matter. But you matter also in the wisdom that you have, the God-given structure that God has given you to see things that we can't see, to understand things we can't understand. I've never had women come to me and ask me for a lot of advice on things that only another woman could answer. A guy's whole approach is, well, if it's broke, I'll fix it. That's how we think. And you're going, I'm not asking you to fix it. I just need someone to talk to. You know how many people we have in this church of all ages that simply need another woman to talk to? We've got to get better at, and the men, and I'm trying to get this going. I want to get it to where the guys are taking time to sit down together. Chris and I try to meet up on Fridays every chance we can, within reason. Josh showed up. I invited Mike, but he was busy. But I would like to get it to where we're having a men's group again. We don't have to do anything. Just sit and eat and drink coffee and talk. It doesn't have to be a Bible study. Because you're going to find that a lot of life is interaction. And it's amazing how simple conversation about topics can take another person and make them go, oh yeah, I never thought of that. The ladies need to be doing this. Because again, you're a critical aspect in the sense that there's not going to be a woman coming through that door that's going to want to be a part of this church unless they feel that the other women are going to be conducive and they can have a good relationship. Talking is important. Listening is important. You get my point. The world desperately needs true Christians. Stop. Again, you're going to get tired. You'll finally throw me out, I'm thinking. One of these days, you're going to say, Dan, we can't take it anymore. Get out. Stop thinking of yourself, and I mean no disrespect to soldiers. My son was one. My father-in-law was one. Stop thinking that you're an American. Start thinking you're a Christian and American second. Your words, your actions, your thoughts better start going in the direction of what would my king instruct me to do in this moment with this topic and subject. Because what you're seeing happen on your planet now, the cancel culture and stuff, you need to know that's been going on for centuries. This is nothing new. What's new is that Christians are failing to understand that they need to be 100% committed to what they believe is true and stand their ground on it, even if all hell breaks loose. And it does. Look at your history. You got people burned at the stake, people sewed up in bags and let wild dogs tear them apart. We've got example after example after example of Christians who said, no, you're wrong, Jesus is right. And you're letting your culture right now scare you enough that you're afraid to say no more. I'm not going to look at women as being objects. I'm not going to look at children as not mattering. I'm not going to look at my words as being something that I can throw around. You got to get back to a point where you draw a line in the sand. And again, Kelly and I were talking, and you made my point, because her school has a difficult job of drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is what we believe, and this is where we stand. And what was great is how passionately she was communicating that the person who has to make those decisions is doing it with the right attitude. So I may disagree with your lifestyle, but I have to disagree with it correctly. I have to stand my ground on what's right, but I have to say no to what's wrong and do it correctly, with grace, with kindness, with the intention of building up, not tearing down. That's it. I've said enough. I could go on because there's a lot here. And I only gave you some of the history. And again, you can go look it up. It's not. Just please start thinking of the importance of your role in society. Seriously. And here, I don't care how dumb you think you are or how much your words don't matter, they matter. And believe it or not, the right person may come through that door, and you may be the only person that God has put in their path to help them change their life. So women have great value. I don't know, I got about 4 sermons all in that one sermon. Let's pray ourselves out. I mean, I feel this deep need to just say, forgive us, Lord. I mean, I know we are, and I know that you keep telling us to get up and go forward, that we don't dwell in the past, just keep moving forward. I pray, Lord, that we become forward-moving people, that we start developing purpose for existing in our lives instead of just existing. I pray that we decide what is right according to what you have said, and what is wrong according to what you have said. I pray that you bless every family in this church, and when I say bless, I'm speaking in terms of relationship with you. I know you already take care of the other needs. I pray that you bless us by developing us out more and more to be what Christians are supposed to be. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you that he was a radical in this world. Thank you that I am included in his radical views. I pray you deal with the nations as you see fit. And I pray that I'm a greater help than a hindrance. Only you can make these changes, Lord. We ask this according to your will. Amen. Thanks for coming. It's good to see you.